Summer is here in full force, and that means that we are focusing on all things gardening, baking those fresh summer recipes, and working on plenty of projects here around the farm. One of our biggest projects that we're working on right now is our garden, of course. We grew it this year in size, and we are very excited about it. We planted it once and tilled it up, planted it once, and then came back and tilled up a second area to plant and just added onto it. So far we have tons of cucumber plants, rows of corn and okra. We have a few tomato plants and lots of sunflowers and wildflowers. We planted some potatoes, some carrots. Those are more trial runs. We will see how everything does. My daughter has a little watermelon patch in here as well that we are all very excited about. But with the warm weather comes all of the weeds. We are kind of out of the wet, springy season, and now we are just into the dry heat. There's still a humidity though, but because of all of the wet, rainy weather of spring, that means all of the weeds grew and we could not keep a handle on them until it dried out. And so my flower beds are completely overtaken with weeds. Let me tell you something. Last year, I planted zinnias and sunflowers and cosmos and daisies and all things cut flowers in all of my flower beds, which is a pretty big area. And some of them came up, some of them didn't, but these sunflowers here on this front side where our front porch steps are went ballistic. I had a ton of them last year. They were huge and tall, and they bloomed right as I went into the hospital and had my second baby. And so I missed part of it, but I have a few videos with that in there. And they seeded again, and I guess the seeds dropped at the end of the season last year. And so now I have more sunflowers in my flower beds, and it is making me very happy. Now, in the hottest part of the day down here in Arkansas, we don't go outside, which is funny that I say that because I was just outside in the middle of the day earlier today working on the barn with my dad. But normally you don't go outside in the hottest part of the day in the afternoon. We do all of our farm chores in the mornings, and then most of them are done in the evenings. So that means that my sewing projects can take place in the afternoon. So this afternoon, that is exactly what I'm doing. I have my kitchen curtain. I've had a blue tick and stripe curtain up in my kitchen for quite a while now, and I wanted something new and fresh, and I wanted something light. Our kitchen cabinets, I would love to paint them, but since we were building a farmhouse, it is just not on the list of things that we will be checking off. But they are a brown, it's a fake wood, but meant to look like wood. And so it just darkens the room up so much that I wanted to add in some light and breezy curtains for summer, for all of the warm weather. So I took an antique, I think it's the table runner. I've used it on my table several times. It has embroidery on it, and it has the crochet edges on it, and I just chopped it right in half and sewed a hem, and then used these curtain clips to clip it up onto my curtain rod. Now, what I like about this is I have a lot of these antique table runners, and many of them actually have seams and stitches in them right down the middle. So if I ever wanted to not have these as curtains, like when we move, if they don't fit in any of our windows or hutches or anything where I would want a curtain like this, I can just sew it back together. And even though there will be a seam in it and some people would hate that, many of my antique ones already have that. So it is really not a big deal. It won't look any different than any of my other ones that I put out regularly. Aren't these just the sweetest things? They look country, they look antique, but they also just look light and bright. They function a lot better than my other ones as well because they're a thinner fabric, and I just love them. Now, y'all, in a past video, I made this lemon vinegar. I just basically soaked lemons in vinegar, which I do regularly, for a homemade, what I called homemade Mrs. Meyer's cleaner, but a homemade surface cleaner. And I have been waiting, y'all. I've been waiting for summer to hit and be ready to make this lemon cleaner. So I am just taking my lemons and straining them out of that vinegar. And then I am adding half and half vinegar, half water. Sometimes I add lemon essential oil, but on this day I'm doing the not so good, but what I love the most, addition of a sweet Meyer lemon fragrance oil. And this is what sets it apart, y'all. This is what makes it seem more like Mrs. Meyer's. The scent will last days, which I know it's not the healthiest thing, but oh my, does it brighten my day when I walk back in my kitchen after getting it all nice and clean and I can smell that sweet Meyer lemon spray left. And it is cheap to make. And this one I added a little bit of soap. You could use a homemade soap that you've melted down. You could use a Castile soap, which is what I did here. And it helps cut the grease a little bit better. And then I also use this on my dishes. Sometimes I will do no soap and I'll add cornstarch, and that kind of helps cut some of the grime too. But on certain surfaces, that will leave a white film. So, whichever direction you want to go. You could even leave all of it out and just do the half vinegar, half water. The lemons that you soaked, that helps give a scent, as well as some cleaning power, because lemons are really great for cutting grease and grime and getting stuff nice and clean. Lemon essential oil is also good for this, which I didn't add, but sometimes I do. I wanted to add the fragrance oil this time. But y'all, this smelled so good. I can still smell it in my kitchen from just a few days ago, and I love it. This is what I love to do in the afternoons when the kids are down for a nap. I love to spend my afternoons sewing and making up homemade products for the house, organizing and just working on whatever little thing that my heart desires and that I feel like making up that day. This afternoon I was just a busy little bee, I'll tell you that. So we are throwing on our apron. I have been selling bread at a farmer's market local to me, and I've been taking orders, and the yeast breads that have the add-ins in them have been selling so fast. I sell out every week nearly, and they're great for breakfast. They're great for just toasting up. It's great for a little snack with some cream cheese on it, and it's also really good for French toast casserole. I've done cinnamon swirl, I've done jalapeno cheddar, I've done just a regular cheddar. Oh, what else? Chocolate chip. And this day I am doing a strawberry. I've also done a blueberry, which is pretty good, but this day I'm working on a strawberry. So let me tell you, here's the recipe. It is, for one loaf, it is 3/4 cup of milk. I'm using goat's milk. If I don't have goat's milk from our farm, I'll use buttermilk. A half a stick of butter, which is 1/4 cup. You melt that down. Then I add an egg. I also add 2 tablespoons of sugar just to add a nice little touch of sweetness. You could also use honey or maple syrup. 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast. And then I'm adding about 2.5 to 3 cups of flour and 3/4 teaspoon of salt. Now with these breads, when you add in a fruity addition, such as blueberries or strawberries, it's nice to add a little bit of vanilla. It's totally optional, but it does make it really good. I like to add my liquids first, get them mixed up, then I add my yeast, then my flour, then my salt. Salt is the last thing. You don't want salt to come into contact with your yeast. And so I always add the liquids and the sugar, then the yeast, then the flour, then the salt. Get that nice and mixed up. And then I knead mine for several minutes until it really comes together. And then you want it to pass the window pane test. which is when you stretch it out in between your fingers, you can see the light through it. You can almost see through it. It gets so thin. While that needs, until we hit that window pane test, we are washing our dishes. We are not going to sit around and let these build up. I'm really bad about this, and then I'll get to the end of the night and have all these dishes to do. So today we are not doing that. We are getting them washed in between. That is what my mom always taught me to do. I don't always listen, but I know better. I do. And so that's what we are doing today. While your bread needs, you better be washing those dishes. Use your new lemon cleaner with that soap in there and give them a good scrub. And then let them air dry on a tea towel. By the time you're done, I'm sure your bread will be done and ready for its first rise as well. Had a little bit more time, so we are going to clean the cabinets, the countertops. I always get flour everywhere, y'all. I always have flour everywhere. I get my mixer going too fast. The flour's flying out everywhere, or liquids are sloshing out, so we're going to give that a good cleaning up as well and get it all dry. I'm telling y'all, this cleaner smells good. Now we let our bread rise for an hour or until doubled. It depends on how warm it is in your house. And then once it's doubled, we punch it down, and you really want to work the dough here so that it does not overproof, especially now that it is very warm outside. So I punch it down and knead it by hand, just a minute or two. And then we're going to get that into a nice round ball, pat it out, and then we're going to roll this out. You don't want to go any wider than your loaf pan, but you do want enough that you can get plenty of filling in there. So we're going to chop up our strawberries. My daughter loves strawberries. I had to fight her from coming and stealing them. And then we're just going to sprinkle these onto the dough. Roll this as tight as we can without stretching or pulling on the dough too much, making sure that we keep all those delicious strawberries in the loaf. Roll it up, and then make sure you get that pulled really tight under there where none are falling out. I like to roll both the ends under. I just like the way it looks better. And then being very gentle, pick it up and put it in your loaf pan. I like to grab it from where it is sealed up. That way nothing falls out. Set this in a warm spot for another hour or until doubled as well. Bake it at 350 till golden brown and it reaches 195 or 200 degrees. And then slice that strawberry bread open. I'm so glad to have you visiting here on our little country farm this summer. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you again next week.